Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are planting spring crops here in the raised bed garden. Here's a look at it. We've got 12 raised beds in here, 3x4s, there's 4 of those, 3x6s there are 4 of, and 4 L-shaped raised beds that are 6 feet on the long side and 3 feet on the short side. So spring crops are the type that can handle colder weather. Although we don't have any freezing temperatures or anything really near that in our 10-day forecast, you never know. Spring weather can be very erratic. So the only kinds of things we can plant this early are those things that can handle those colder temperatures should the weather turn. Some really popular ones are beets, broccoli, cauliflower, celery, any kind of greens, lettuce, spinach, chard, kale, peas, onions. I'm not going to plant onions today. That'll be a different day. Did I forget anything of what I'm actually planting? I don't think so. There are likely crops I'm forgetting about. You can Google spring crops or ask somebody at your local garden center and they can give you a more complete list based on your growing area. We are a zone 6 here in Eastern Oregon just for reference. And I was checking soil temperature here because usually you want to wait until your soil temp has heated up a little bit, and we are well above where we need to be. Hi Russell. So I've had this in the soil for like the last 30 minutes, and right now it says our soil temperature is 70, which is crazy to me. But on this specific soil thermometer, it gives you a little bit of a guide, not for all crops, but it gives you kind of an idea. It says 45 degree soil temp. You can plant cabbage, celery, onion, and peas. 50 degrees broccoli, 60 degrees, all your warm season crops except for okra, which wants it to be 70. I've had this soil thermometer for years and years, and it helps me every single year, just as a reminder. So this morning, the kids and I headed down to the garden center and we picked up some stonehead cabbage starts. I didn't start my own from seed this year because I actually enjoy going and picking out starts at the greenhouse still. How big did these get? I don't know if it says. It doesn't say how many pounds. Sometimes it does, but it matures in 50 to 70 days. And the stonehead, I don't think are massive heads of cabbage, which we don't need massive ones. And then I got 2 4-packs of broccoli, which are the Emerald Crown. I grew this variety a couple of years ago, and oh my goodness, they were great. High-performing broccoli right here. And then from seed, we've got Danvers half-long carrots. We've got spinach. I've got a couple part bags and then a new bag of sugar snap pole peas. So I'm going to need to grow these on a trellis like that little bamboo thing over there. And then I've got 3 different varieties of lettuce. We've got iceberg, butter crunch, and then a Tom Thumb butterhead. And we are not filling up all of these raised beds because my plan this year is to concentrate most of our food crops in this space, because usually I tuck in tomatoes and peppers and things like that, beans, way out in the formal flower garden area. And when distance away from the kitchen can be a big factor. You know, you're in the kitchen, you need a pepper, and you think, I'm not going to walk all the way out there just for one pepper. We'll just go without it tonight. But if it's only a few steps out your kitchen, it just makes it way more practical. So I'm going to try to not, overdo with certain crops. You know, there's some years where I plant 30-some tomato plants. There's 4 of us, you know, and it's wonderful to be able to give things away. But I don't think I want to dedicate that much time to maintaining and harvesting and that sort of thing, all those crops. So I want to try to grow most everything in here minus our potatoes and onions, because I do grow a lot of those because we do consume a lot and we have a good way to store them. And I think we have a buddy for today. Good boy, Russell. Before we can do anything, I am going to harvest the rest of these carrots. This was last year's spring crop, and I'm going to put them in this tub. And then I planted some fall carrots last year, and I never thinned them. While these are all still really great to eat, I thought it would just be easier to pull them all up, put them in the tub, and send them home with Bethany for her horses. It's just, yeah, look at these. This is what happens when you don't thin your carrots. I'm happy they're coming up so easy, though. And you know, I try to give our chickens the carrots, and they just don't do anything. They just let them dry up in their run. They're too spoiled. They get all of my leftover melon and all that stuff from inside the kitchen, which they far prefer. And a little update on our garlic. So we planted this last year late. I can't remember, was it November when I remembered to do this? So I'm thrilled to see that they're all up looking beautiful. Oh, here comes Aaron and the kids. So to start things off, we're going to clear out the raised beds, and we are going to turn on the drip in here and troubleshoot any drip issues that might be going on before I actually plant. Always the prep work that takes the longest. Whoa. All right, the beds have been cleaned out, water has been tested, and I decided where we're going to be planting all of our crops today. So the next step is to amend the soil in those specific beds. So as you come in the front entrance, I'm going to plant the 8 broccoli plants right here along with the Danvers carrots. On this side, I'm going to be planting the 4 cabbage. And in this side, I have bachelor's buttons that volunteer here every year. In fact, they've volunteered all around the bed in the gravel, like all along the side there, and they are so pretty. So until I decide that this space is like vital for food crops, I'm gonna leave the bachelor's buttons alone. Let them be pretty this spring. Over here, I'm gonna plant our lettuce. I'm gonna plant sugar snap pole peas right there, and possibly in this far bed, but in this one, I am gonna need to swap the drip out because you can see we still have the old 1/4 inch drip that's got the drip emitter holes every 6 inches or so. And this just doesn't work as great as the drip tape does, like you can see in this bed here. So we'll have to swap this out if we decide to plant ×2 of the sugar snap peas today. And then with our spinach, you guys, I decided just to clean up last year's spinach crop. Isn't this amazing? I planted this late summer last year and it wintered over beautifully. I've been cutting on it for the chickens, pulled out a few plants for the chickens, but it's largely beautiful. Like beautiful. It hasn't been eaten on by anything. So I think I'm just going to sprinkle some seeds in the open spots. We'll work through this spinach first. And if I feel like we need to come in and reseed, we can do that. Usually the crops that we've planted in the fall look a little more rough than that one, and it just doesn't. Also, side note, we've got some chives that have been in this pot for probably, I don't know, 7 years at least, maybe 8. Maybe they've been in here the whole time this raised bed garden's been in here. But they come back faithfully in this container every single year. So we're gonna go grab some Land and Sea soil conditioner and some, I don't have any Biotone, I'm out of it right now. So I'm gonna grab some Garden Tone. I usually amend with the Biotone at the beginning of every new crop, but we'll just make do with what we have. We also need to grab some domes to pop over the cabbage and broccoli, just because it's supposed to get pretty windy. And it's not, the cold's not gonna bother them at all, but it's the wind that kind of beats them up a little bit. So I think I wanna cover them for the next couple of days, just to make sure that their transition into their new home is an easy one. Oh, I almost sat down on that. That would have been cold and unpleasant. You know what? Grab this one. Okay, we need another one of these if we're gonna double up on our peas. Okay. Oh, I can't ever reach those. So I'm gonna need 12 of these. There we go. All right, that'll work. Okay, I've got everything we need, but before we amend the soil, I'm gonna go ahead and swap drip out in this bed from the 1/4 inch to the drip tape. We've tried lots of different configurations of drip in raised bed situations throughout the years, and drip tape has proven so far to be the best for us. And it's just because it doesn't wear out quite as quickly. You can run it for further distances. It has a very good flow. Like with the 1/4 inch, like with this right here, especially in the 6-foot beds, I would find that right at the helm, like right at the supply line, I'd get great flow of water out of these emitter holes. But by the time you reach the end, I would be getting very little or maybe even 0 water out of these. So I'd have really great growth on my crops toward this side and very poor growth on this side. We've also tried using the 1/2-inch drip tube, which we use in our flower beds. Works great out there, but and I think you can order it with emitter holes closer together, but I always tried with the 12 and 18 inches spacing in emitters because that's what we use in the flower beds, and it was just too far apart. That's why we switched to the 1/4 inch so we could have emitter holes closer together. Anyway, tried that, tried soaker hoses. They wear out super fast, and I had the same kind of water flow issues with that. Drip tape just is awesome. If you don't need to curve, like we don't use it in our flower beds because we need to curve a little bit more. If you just have straight rows, drip tape is so wonderful. So I just want to walk you through this process quick. Okay, so first of all, our raised beds have individual faucets in them, and we decided to do that because one, we had a blank slate. It was very easy to get in here and run the extra pipes and stuff to do this. And I thought it would be very nice, and it has been very nice, to be able to turn water off completely. So we can turn off water to this bed if I currently don't have anything planted in it, because there are some times where I don't have things planted. And I don't want, when I turn on this zone, for a bunch of water to go into this bed and for no reason, if that makes sense. So I can turn it on or off. I know that's not the case all the time, but I've got it off right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and take our old stuff off so that I can get it out of our hair. Really should have brought a pair of pruners out with me. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is attach our header line, which I've got this little part right here that's an adapter. It's got the 3/4 inch female with a little filter in there. And we do already have a pressure regulator at the beginning of our zone. So if you don't have a pressure regulator and you're hooking to a faucet, you might need that part in between this and your drip tubing. Anyway, just be mindful of that. Otherwise, you might have just way too much pressure. So I'm going to actually attach it to our drip tube first. So we just take a length of 1/2 inch solid black poly, and we're just going to push it into the adapter. Easier said than done, you guys. This one's pretty tough. I hate these adapters. They're kind of the worst. I can do this. Yes. I might have pulled something in my shoulder. So I've got our adapter hooked to our poly. So now I will attach it. One thing I would have done a little bit different is raise these up just a little bit up further than the beds so that I could access this a little bit easier, because the faucet's face downward. There we go. Righty tighty. Okay, make sure that's nice and tight. So we've got our black poly now. Let me get you a better view of the end of it. Gonna use our ender from the old one. Just a figure 8 ender right here. So I cut it longer than I need it to be. Okay, we're gonna slide the figure 8 ender on, and then I'll probably want my crimp to be about right there. I cut it way longer than it needs to be. My goodness. You can cut that excess. You don't need all of that. But it doesn't hurt anything either. Okay, so that's our header line right there. I'm gonna go ahead and use a landscape staple to tack it down. So now we need to attach our drip tape couplers, which on one end has the little barb, and that's the one that you put in to the 1/2 inch poly. And then the thicker end right here is where we will slide our drip tape on. So we're gonna use this little tool right here, which will help us pop holes in our supply line. And then this one goes in. I'll get you a closer up look here in a minute. There we go. Careful with the soil. So then we take our drip tape, emitter side up, and we feed it on. Well, I'm going to make sure we've got a straight cut here first. Feed it onto our coupler, and then you just screw this little piece, and that holds it down. Okay. Now we're going to put our ender on. Same kind of deal. We're just going to slide it on the end of the drip tape. Kind of have to rock it back and forth. Okay, I think we're good. And I just use landscape staples to tack it down every once in a while. And right here, I'm gonna pack more soil under it. You can bury this drip tape too, but I like to have it up above the soil surface for a while at least so I can make sure that everything's running nicely. Okay, so I want my next run to be somewhere right in here. And you do want to make sure to not pop the hole on the top, otherwise it's going to want to crimp your drip tape. You want everything to come straight out of it. So we're going to pop it in from the side. That. So the little barb side goes in. Like that. Our drip tape, emitter side up. Oh, look, you see the worm? Oh, that's exciting. I make sure that this little, I don't even know what to call it, spinny part is open all the way. And then we're just going to rock the drip tape on. You really want to make sure it's on there really, really tight because these can blow. It's really good to test after you're done. Okay, that seems nice and tight. So we've got it connected there. So now we need to cut and put our ender on. So I like to cut it just like, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch after the emitter. You can kind of see inside the drip tape. There's the emitter hole, but like the whole contraption of the emitter inside is like an inch wide. So it goes from about here to about right over here. So I make sure that there's a little bit, like enough for the barb to go on. But that way it'll still fit in our raised bed and won't have to hang over the side. Just kind of rock that on. And then spin that all the way down to where it is tight. And that's the pull test. I can't pull it. Make sure the end's closed too. Okay, tack it down. All right, we've got 2 rows done. 2 more to go. Okay, this one is all done. We're gonna test it here. I just called Aaron and asked him to turn it on for 1 minute to see how it does. And that way we can determine if there are any leaks anywhere or if anything pops off. Do you wanna make sure that this is on a little bit? We start with a little bit. We rarely open them all the way. And you can do as many or as little runs of drip tape as you want. I prefer to do 4, even though in this case, we're gonna be putting that bamboo trellis thing up in here and it's gonna be more of a round circle of peas. This is typically how I like to plant my things, like row crop style, and I can fit quite a lot in and we don't have to run the drip as long when we have more drip tape in here. Okay, now we wait. Here it goes. Ooh, so far so good. You can see it's all running. That is awesome. Usually it only takes about a minute to determine if any of the enders are gonna blow off or any of the drip tape's gonna blow out of the connectors here. But that's awesome. You can see the water running up and then it runs down into the soil. And the reason why they have you put the drip emitters facing up rather than down is because of gravity. If you get any sediment in these drip lines, which is kind of inevitable, I mean, it's hard not to get something in them, all that sediment will settle at the bottom rather than settling, of course, at the top. So instead of plugging the emitters, it'll just hang out at the bottom of the runs of drip tape and it won't plug up your emitter holes. That's perfect. No leaks, we can carry on. So I'm gonna go through now and put garden tone and land and sea in every one of these beds, and then we can actually plant. So these are a little bit hard to push down into the soil. So I like to take individual stakes and kind of run them down all 3 corners just to help with the stability. And that way I can punch those down in the soil and it gives it a little bit more strength. So I kind of go in, back out, down and then into the soil. There. It's going to take a lot of weight and a lot of wind to knock that down. Okay, for our pea seeds, these are sugar snap pole peas, and that's why we need this trellis. You can see they're pink because they've been coated with a fungicide to help them germinate and not be attacked by any kind of fungal issue. So to plant these, we go about every 2 inches apart, about a ½ inch deep. And I like to plant 2 or 3 seeds in each hole, like this. And I'm not going to cover them over until I've got them all in the ground, so I can make sure that I don't forget any spots. Look at that. You can see all of them lined up there all the way around. So then we're just going to cover them over, and there's no need to thin these later on. Just let them grow up the trellis and do their thing. All right, the peas are both planted. So now we're going to work on the lettuce, which I'm going to plant all 3 varieties in this same raised bed. And one of the bags of Lanacea was real wet. So I'm going to try to mix this all together. And it's nice that we've already tested the drip because I don't mind covering them now. Now that I know that we don't have any issues. It's interesting to me too how every year differs from the last. Like a couple of years ago, I wasn't able to get out here and plant until the middle of April. And right now we're like, what are we, mid-March? Which is pretty mid-ish March. So we're like a month ahead of when we were able to do it last year, which is surprising because we had such a crummy January and February. It wasn't crummy, it was good, but there was a lot of moisture, a lot of snow, not a lot of warmth. So I am just so thankful that we are out here. Now this lettuce, I'm going to plant the iceberg in a way that I'm going to be thinning it out because I do want them to form heads. And then the butterhead and let's see, which ones do I have? Butter crunch and a butterhead lettuce I'm just going to plant as a leaf lettuce. Either way, the seeds need to go just about 1/8 of an inch deep, like not deep at all. So I'm just going to make 4 little rows with my fingers, just kind of following along where the drip tape is, like so. And I have to take the gloves off to handle the seeds. Lettuce, butterhead, Tom Thumb. One of you guys sent this out to me. 200 seeds in this packet, so thank you. So awesome. So let's do that one on this side. Let me go about this far. Okay, that one's in. Also, you guys, I've got these like slate ID tags, and I used a white chalk pen to write lettuce on it. Okay, now we're gonna go in with our butter crunch. I'm doing about thirds here, space-wise. You could also pack this out. Like if you didn't want to grow in rows, you could just scatter the seed, especially if you're planting them as leaf lettuce, and just let them all grow together. They don't need really to be spaced out like I am. I just prefer to do it this way because I like the look of it. I think it looks super charming when you've got very distinctive rows and everything looks very tidy. I prefer that. Okay, now we're going to go in with our iceberg, which was packed in 2022. We're in 2025 and it's pelleted. So I'm going to plant all these because I don't know how many of them will germinate, if at all. Pelletized seed does not have a very good shelf life whatsoever. So as long as I get like 1, 2, 3 to germinate in every row, then we'll be golden. I'll have plenty of room to form up their heads. Okay, so now we've got it all planted, so I'm just going to lightly cover. Now the most important part here, when you're planting seeds, especially at such a surface level here, basically, is you cannot let them dry out. Once you've watered them in and the seed has received some moisture, the seed will start to soften and swell, and it will open up a point of germination on the seed. Now, if you let it dry out too much in between waterings, it will dry up and it will pinch together that point of germination and the seed will not germinate. So the most important thing is to make sure that you are out giving them water, which means like the drip system I do not rely on for bringing up seeds in the very beginning because the coverage isn't perfect unless we ran it for a really, really long time, and I don't want to dislodge the seeds. So I like to come out here with the hose and just manually, it takes like 30 seconds, just watering really quick to make sure that surface area stays wet. Whew. This is why I wanted 3-foot raised beds. I can reach barely across to the other side. 4 feet makes you have to go to the other side to reach, and I don't like that. That way I can do everything from one side. This bed's done. Okay, so now we are going to be planting our cabbage in this bed. This is the side that has a bachelor's button, so I just did a top dress of the land and sea just to give them a little bit of nutrients. So let me get this bed all prepared. Okay, I like to dig down just a little bit to find where the emitters are. So I like to plant the seedling as close to an emitter as I can. What we're gonna do, 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I'm just gonna use this tag that came with them to ID what they are. They're not very root bound, so I'm just gonna pop them in. If they have kind of a long stem on the bottom, these really don't, but sometimes they form up a fairly long stem. You can bury them a little bit deeper just so they have more stability. Just kind of bury up that stem and kind of, you know, nestle them down in there. You can actually direct seed cabbage and broccoli. I've had really good luck doing that as well. Something about putting starts in the ground though. Uh-oh, there's 2 here. Separated them. Means we get 5 cabbage for the price of 4. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna pop one right in here, because why not? Means I need to go get an extra cloche. Okay, depending on your weather, this may not be necessary, but because we've been so windy, I'm gonna put these cloches over them, and they've got little holes down around the base, and I just pop a landscape staple through one of the holes and then pop that down in the ground. Whoops. Whoa! Holy moly, I don't know my own strength. There you go. There. Now it can't really blow away. I suppose it could if it wanted to. Maybe I'll put another staple in. When I very first got these, they used to be clear, and they've kind of turned this amber color a little bit, but I really like that the top has a little opening so that they can still get air and they won't get too hot in there. Where's the other hole? There we go. Oh, for crying out loud. There we go. There we go. We're good. Okay, these are all done. I've got all of them opened up, and that way it's also easy to water. If I want to manually water, I can just put my hose, you know, trickle a hose right through the top. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna pretty much do the same thing with our broccoli. Now we are planting our carrots, and those need to go about 1/4 inch deep. So again, just kind of like with the lettuce, I'm just making a little furrow with my hand. And you want to plant these, like eventually you want to thin them out to at least 1 inch apart so that they have room to form up. And it depends on what variety of carrot you have. If you have ones that stay a little bit smaller, that can be adjusted, the spacing. If you have carrots that get a little bit bigger, you can go like 1.5 inches, 2 inches apart if you want. I usually go in pretty thick with my seeds, and as you saw earlier, I did not thin any of my carrots from last year, and it just makes them not form up very nice. So we've got to remember to do that this year. Of all the crops to plant from seed tape, carrots are definitely the one that I favor, doing it that way. That way you get exact spacing without needing to thin. Okay, we're just covering over. Okay, that's done. Just gotta water them in. Oh no, I got a little bit of spinach to plant. I was gonna say, I think we're done, but we're not. Okay, so I just tossed a little bit of fertilizer in land and sea in the open spot here. Spinach seed only has to go about 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep, typically. I like to go in thick, cover it over. One other open spot over here. One, two, these are so cute. They're like mini cloches. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I need to go get one more, but we have to use big ones on the last 2. All right, guys, we got it done. Oh, I just love it. Early spring, stepping in here and seeing some activity. So our broccoli is all covered, watered in. Carrots, a little bit of spinach seed went in. Peas are done on both sides. Cabbage and lettuce. I'm still gonna need to swap out drip in this bed right here, but I'm gonna leave it for now because it's still watering that boxwood. Same with this one here. I had this run with just 1/2 inch black poly with individual emitters to just a couple of spots, so that we could have vine crops. So what did I have in here? Some kind of winter squash. And they did great in here, but if we're gonna do anything in any sort of row, I'm gonna need to get the drip tape going. Look at this. Oh, I just love it so much. Especially with those bright daffodils just cheering the place up. And while we were planting, you may have noticed how beautiful the fence looks. Look at this. Paul and Bethany just recently finished restaining it. It needed it so bad. It was looking like real chippy, and there was a lot of gray wood showing. And they were able to stain everything except for the arbors, of course, because the Colette roses are just pretty thick on there. But I guess this will give you a small idea of what it was looking like. And this doesn't look too bad because they did clean it off. So anything that was like chipping off is gone, and you won't be able to see this here real soon once the roses start filling in. But they did unravel these stems and they tied them back so that they could get the entire lower fence portion restained. It just makes the space feel brand new. I absolutely love it. They did a fantastic job. They also worked on the raspberry, blackberry, and grape area, because all of those we use the same kind of stain. In fact, maybe we'll throw up some footage of what the stain is. I think we've got a big bucket of it, but that is what I'm gonna leave you with today. They filmed the whole process, so you can just watch. That's kind of therapeutic. I don't know if that's the right, soothing, hypnotic, watching something that looked so shabby become fresh and new again. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you enjoy watching the fence areas come back to life. See you guys in the next video. Bye.